It's an album first and foremost of traditional songs, traditional British songs that I've learnt from mostly from the Gypsy Traveller community, the British Gypsies and British, Irish and Scottish travellers. And they're all old songs, some of them ancient, some of them not so old, but you know, hundreds of years old generally. They're emotional tales. They're all very rare versions that nobody's really heard before, that I've dug out of, you know, I've learnt firsthand, or I've, you know, dug deep into old recordings made in the 50s and earlier, you know, in caravans from the old song collectors. But I've taken these old songs and I've reappraised them in a contemporary way, not trying to create a folk album in the classic sense of guitars and twiddly-dee and very sort of revival arrangements, but bringing an acoustic and a texture to them, using sounds, lost and found sounds that have a similar genesis, or homemade sounds to the idea of where folk song comes from, I guess. It is Marmite music within the folk world, as folk song is Marmite stuff to the contemporary world. But I've never wanted to preach to the converted. I'm quite evangelical in my love of it, because I'm an outsider and I didn't come from folk music, I discovered it. And so I really want to convince the rest of the world who've never heard it, going that, hey, this is really great stuff, you've got to hear it. And part of my motivation for making the music is because I couldn't really find much folk music other than the deep, you know, academic stuff that inspired me on a contemporary level. There wasn't much that really kind of made my heart soar in the way that it does when I listen to blues or a lot of the world musicians and singers or fado or something with real guts and spirit. And in fact, you know, there's the wonderful quote that I often say, which was from Gustav Mahler, of all people, not the most politically sound of people, but he said, "Tradition is tending the flame and not worshipping the ashes." And that has been a great sort of guide for me of how one should approach any tradition, you know, a modern tradition. It's not about looking at what's gone behind and trying to, you know, reshape it. It's about the fuel that you put on the fire. And, you know, that for me has been that's how I work. Technically, it wasn't very complex. I wasn't doing wild things. There's one song, the last song on the album, which is, I guess, the sort of sound art piece, which is a Scottish ballad, My Oisin, which is the traveller cant for My Old Shoes, and I learnt it off my teacher, Stanley Robertson, who was a Scottish traveller, and wonderful man. It's an old song, beautiful ballad. So it's just a lot of layering, a little bit of, you know, acoustic, you know, some wrapping around. And then on that one I put the Swifts on to give that sense of space, because as the song moves into the first verse of me singing, it's about I saw my lovely lass to the church go, and she's dressed up to get married with another man. So I wanted to give this idea of, you know, this church bells ringing and this sort of scape, this landscape, this soundscape of the openness, and in fact the song ends with a recording I made just on my iPhone of church bells, but very interesting church bells, and it creates this very mournful sound. And everyone thinks I've, you know, done clever things to these, but actually what I love about a lot of the work in the album is it's not technology that's done the clever work. It's letting nature and just small sort of influencing and small sort of applications on, you know, simple devices to reveal a new acoustic. The Mercurys are it's an award that I like to believe puts the integrity of music at its heart, and the judges are all brilliant people. The ones I know are people I have a great amount of respect for, and I like to think that they are not sort of impressed by the razzle-dazzle, and so in that sense it's a massive honour to be part of it. I think more importantly, it is a great honour that folk music is being treated as a candidate there up amongst your, you know, your Plan Bs, your Django Djangos, and that it's a valid and important musical sort of beacon for today. You know, it's funny because it's the oldest music in the award. It's been going for thousands of years, and here it is, you know, on Radio 1 and on Channel 4 and in places that, you know, don't care for old things, old ways. So I'm really chuffed. I think, yeah, folk music deserves to be there. I'm really proud that I get to be the one to get it there, of course, but I would hope that through this attention, people will go, okay, you know, I quite like this music. Maybe there's other folk music, and you know, and that people look further into the folk canon and discover a whole other world of, you know, music that's, you know, below the radar.